Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Katie Wheeler Accessibility Podcast, where we talk accessibility, technology, and more. My name is Katie Wheeler, and I'm your host for this show. I'm a professional working in the accessibility space, and today I want to talk about my journey to employment. And I really encourage all of you to sit down, buckle up, and hold on because it's a wild ride. I'll take you through, my college graduation last year, all the way through my journey with what's known as vocational rehabilitation. That started when I was 17, all the way up to, having the courage to step out and join the field of accessibility, specifically digital accessibility, and how that looks for me as a professional in the field, right? I get this question a lot as a professional with a disability, and I understand why, because a lot of people with disabilities, if you are someone with my level of disability or higher, right, oftentimes, I find that a lot of my friends in the disability community are thought of as less than because of our disabilities, and honestly, I find that incredibly sad in the year 2026 when so many laws and acts and things are in place to help us with disabilities and protect our rights as disabled Americans. But that's another story for another day. Because in reality, I totally understand where they're coming from. Because society sees someone with a disability as less than. There's no getting around that, right? So I find, as does a lot of my friends with disabilities, that we have to work harder just to prove ourselves. And in reality, we shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to prove ourselves worthy of anything. But because society sees individuals with disabilities as less than, we often have to prove ourselves. And so, with that being said, I want to get into my journey with the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation Services. This is a rocky one that started back when I was like 17, before I even graduated high school, okay? They took one look at me when I was 17, saw the wheelchair, and determined that because of my grades that I was not a candidate for college. Fast forward, 20 years later, I'm a two-time graduate of college. I not only have an associate's degree, but I also have a BA. And so, I overcame obstacles, I persevered, and I rose above my own adversity to become somebody greater than myself that's helping others through this podcast and other means as well. That goes to show you that, don't ever tell anybody, specifically those with disabilities, that we can't do something, because we'll figure out means to prove you otherwise. So I knew from the very beginning of that conversation that they probably were not going to help me, because while the Department of Rehabilitation is not a bad program, I want to say that up front, that they're not a bad program for those with disabilities, as long as you agree. As long as you're in a situation whereby you're okay with them, the Department of Rehabilitation just helping you get a job in your specific area, your specific community. But that's not for somebody like me who's looking to branch out and, move eventually. And so they're just not the best program for somebody with multiple degrees unless you absolutely need them. And so that's just my opinion. Sorry if that offends everybody out there, but it is what it is, right? And so because of that, they did help me pay for the majority or the rest of my BA degree, which, I am very grateful for that. But when I first heard about the field of accessibility, I have several friends in the disability community, as I mentioned before, and so they really recommended that I give the field of digital accessibility a try. And while I will not mention the program that I specifically went through for privacy's sake, it was a really good program and taught me a lot of skills that I'm not sure I would have learned had I not went through that program, right? Because they really focus on building up that professional that can really work in the field, regardless of the disabilities and the limitations they face. They teach you how to work with the technology that you already have at your back pocket. Excuse me, goodness. And so, that was a really good program for me. The other thing that I will say to anybody who's looking to get into the field of accessibility, specifically digital accessibility, as with any field you're looking to get into, if you need credentials, right, I would carve out time, specifically like the time of a semester, to do the program, and don't do anything else beyond that program, so you can get through the program, get your credentials, and move forward into your career, right? And so, not to say that how I did things was bad. It was just a situation that was specific for me, and it ended up going really well for me. But had I had it to do over again, like, I wouldn't have done that. Like, I would have waited till May when I graduated with my BA and then went on and did the program so I could fully focus on that. But as it were, that was the opportunity that was presented to me then, and I'm stronger for having gone through it, because I proved that I not only could balance a college, finish up a college degree at a very fine university, but also compete in a very competitive field with others who have disabilities. And so I also learned professionalism. I learned how to communicate with others. I learned how to use the technology that was available to me to my advantage. I learned how to write reports in an effective way that would help clients understand better how to make their content accessible to their audience. There were just a lot of really good skill sets that I learned. And specifically, I also want to mention the third thing as pieces of advice is, don't give up what makes you you just to satisfy others, right? Which means, continue building upon that skill set that you already have, right? Continue building upon those skills and learning new things to help you stand out as a creator, as a professional, right? Because when professionals and interviewees and potential employers are looking at you, they're not only looking at how effective you are as a professional, but they're looking at the things that help, that you manage, that help you stand out as a creator, right? And so, and also the last thing, as far as piece of advice that I will say for those with disabilities, is don't be afraid to stand up for yourself and your colleagues, right? Don't be afraid to say, if you think something's wrong, don't be afraid to say, I wish I could help you, but under the circumstances, I don't think it's right that I do help you. Or don't be afraid to say, this is great, but I have colleagues in the same field that get paid to do this very same work and tasks that you're asking me to do for nothing, right? And so, not to say, and that's mainly to say, I may be disabled, but I deserve equal pay for equal work, right? Secondly, as far as like a big topic, I want to get into credentials. In any field that you get into, if you are required to have credentials under your belt, take them, and take them seriously, right? Use the resources and tools available to you. Ask for help when you need it, but don't over ask for help, or they're going to get burnt out very quickly, right? And so I think if you can do those things to help you stand out as a professional, then you'll do okay. But on closing notes, I really want to, encourage you not to let your disability define who you are. Not to let the limitations you face stand in your way. As long as you have tools and resources to help you navigate around the challenges you face and be in a career field that you're completely passionate about doing, you'll do fine. I hope you find this episode helpful, and I will see you guys in next week.